What's up, bro? Today I'm going to talk about 3 mistakes that almost all arrangers are making. Unless you're me, okay? Just kidding. 3 mistakes, okay? 3 big ones that I think would really move the needle if you stopped doing this stuff, bro, okay? Here we go. Number one thing is you don't sing enough, okay? You don't sing. I know you're thinking, bud, I didn't sign up for guitar to sing. I signed up for guitar to play guitar. Wrong. Singing is really, really important. It's really important to vocalize things as much as possible, all right? You can be absolutely tone deaf and still play guitar. There's a lot of instruments you can play and be totally tone deaf, like guitar, piano, what else? Harp, accordion, a lot of stuff. Now, the reason is because how do you play a C on guitar? You just put your finger in a particular place and then you pluck, Same thing with piano. You just press a button and then the correct pitch comes out, right? The tuning happens before you play the note, not while you're playing the note. But a lot of instruments, let's say violin, a lot of string instruments, a lot of wind stuff, I think. Could be wrong about that. Now, there's definitely some tuning involved in that stuff. But a lot of instruments require you to listen to pitches while you're playing, right? So on a violin, you don't just put your finger down on a particular fret because you don't have frets, right? You have to put the finger down and then you have to play the note, and depending on what you're hearing, you're making micro adjustments to that particular note to make sure it's in tune, right? So I really think that people who play instruments where they don't have to do this, they don't have to worry about this. Unfortunately, there's a lot of ear training stuff that otherwise would have to happen in order for you to play that instrument. Intonation is a thing with a lot of instruments. And the reason it's good to have to worry about that thing is you just get the loop of your brain hearing something, recognizing that, oh, that's not what I want. That pitch I'm hearing is not quite as high as I'd like it to be, or not as low as I'd like it to be. You have to do that when you play violin, for example. You never have to do that when you play guitar. You literally never have to. You go through your whole life, be totally tone deaf, and it's fine, okay? But what's cool about singing is that's just the simplest, most direct way to get yourself to be doing that thing that violin, cello players have to do, which is being in tune. So in other words, recognizing pitches, producing pitches, because you can't sing well without listening, okay? Singing is just as much listening as it is doing, as it is producing sound. Because as soon as you start producing sound when you're singing, your brain has to go, okay, how is that pitch? And is it in pitch? Is it my desired pitch? Right? It's not the same with guitar where you just physically put your finger on a thing. Now the reason this is important, singing is important for arranging, is because so much of arranging is that listening aspect of it, is your ability to hear pitches, figure out where they are, and then play them on your guitar, right? And very, very often you see people who arrange regularly, what they'll do is they'll hear a particular pitch, from a song, and what's the first thing they do? They go, ba, ba-nu, ba-nu, ba-nu. The line is ba-nu, and what that singing allows you to do is to store it. It's almost as if you can store it into RAM, basically. It's you hear a particular pitch, and then instead of immediately having to memorize that pitch in silence in your brain long enough to find on your guitar, you're able to just reproduce it with your voice. So it's a really powerful thing. And if you're not singing and you don't vocalize, even when you're just listening to music, just singing along and stuff, or recording yourself singing, super, super valuable. So that's a big problem. If you're a guitar player and you don't sing, you need to start singing. And again, it can be very casual. You can just sing throughout your day, or you can bust out a voice recorder and try to sing a melody and see how it sounds, see how on pitch it is. You might be disgusted with it. And hey, if you're disgusted with it, that's a good thing, okay? That's a good thing, because that means there's a gap between your taste and what you'd like to hear and what you're able to do. And when you have a gap like that, you can close it by getting sick. That's how you get sick. I'm gonna grab my guitar. I'm gonna show you what I mean. Actually, it might not even be in tune right now. But if like you're listening to a particular song and it goes like, now the first thing you're usually gonna wanna do as an arranger trying to figure out where that melody is, if you just hear ba-na-na-na, the first thing you have to do is get it into your brain. Make sure it's there. Make sure you've stored it long enough in your brain so that you can actually, where is it? And of course, I'm playing the thing on a guitar. I'm producing the sound with the guitar, so it's not really working, right? I know exactly where I played this. But I can do it again. I can do it up here. Bum, 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 bum. But before I get my hands on here, I have to make sure in my brain is ba-na-na-na. That has to be in my brain. Ba-na-na-na. And one of the most effective ways to do that is by singing the thing. Ba-na-boom, ba-na-na-na. And sometimes it's not just a melodic line. Sometimes it's just one note, within a chord, for example. Right? You'll always, if you watch me arrange, I'm always doing that. And that's what most people are doing, I feel like. Is they're hearing the note, and as soon as they hear it, as soon as they get an inkling of what that note is, they're singing that note to bring that note more into the forefront of their brain. They're lodging it into their attention so that they can then find that particular note on the guitar. Okay, I'm gonna get rid of my guitar now. Okay, let's talk about number 2, baby. Number 2 thing that arrangers are doing, which is a big mistake. Okay, it is doing everything in the original key. That's right. Doing every song in the original key. This is not a good idea. Let me tell you why, okay? So I've done like 150 plus solo guitar arrangements, and it is the case that most of them I did not do in the original key. Most of them are transposed in some way. So, if a song is in, the key of F or something, or some key that just doesn't really work that well for guitar, it is always in your best interest to transpose that puppy. And I'll tell you what, I've never had somebody comment, well, maybe I have, it's possible, but I don't think I've ever had a comment where somebody said, hey, I like this, but it's not in the original key, bud. I stopped listening because I really need that B flat, dog. I need it to be in B flat major, whatever the hell, right? Nobody cares about that. What they care about is hearing the melody, hearing the recognizable melody, making sure that, hearing the bass, the bass existing as the kind of foundation of the particular measure they're listening to. And then, maybe hearing some inner stuff and having it be played well, that's a big thing too. But nobody ever says like, hey, this sucks because it was in the wrong key. Now, here's the thing. When it comes to guitar, if you're in standard tuning, E, B, G, D, A, E, right? If you're in standard tuning, the thing about standard tuning is that, and this is not the case with, like, let's say piano, for example, but like there's basically 6 notes here that require half the effort, right? Because they can just be played as open strings. Anytime you can access open strings, you are freeing up your left hand to be somewhere else, to do something else, right? Because if for example, if you have a piece of music and it has a lot of, F's in it, in the bass, for example, if it's got a lot of this, a 1 down here, right? That's a 1, believe it or not. If there's a whole bunch of these, well, guess what? Your finger has to be on that 1 and it can't move. So like if you want to play that 1 and then you got a 10 happening right afterwards on the high string, well, guess what? You're screwed. Nobody can do this stretch, right? But what happens when you take the entire piece and you put it down a half step, right? I don't even care what key it's in, man. But let's say, so that 1 turns into a 0, right? And that 10 turns into a 9. And guess what? I can do this no problem, right? Because this particular note requires no left hand effort. It doesn't require that left hand to be anywhere. I like to think of it like, it's almost like at any given time, the bass is kind of like your owner, and like the rest of the fingers are like a dog, all right? And your owner's taking your dog on a walk. It's so stupid. But like, you know, the bass note sort of dictates where the other fingers can be at any given time. So the more zeros you have, and this also applies up here, right? If I'm at 10 and this is like 0, if I'm at 10 and this is 1, conversely, I could take this whole piece and move it up 2 semitones, right? So that instead of this being a 10, it's now a 12, right? And so instead of this being a 1, it's now a 3. Then I can take this 12 and put it down an octave so that it's now, of course, a 0, right? So now it's a 0. Look how doable that is. Now you might say, hey, I don't want to take the melody down an octave. Well, maybe you shouldn't, but maybe you should. It just depends on what's going on in the particular piece of music. That's beyond the depth of this video, okay? But doing things in the original key always is going to get into trouble a lot of times. Now, I mean, think of it this way. Like, there's 12 keys. What are the chances that the key that the song actually exists in, okay, the original key, what are the chances that that key is the key that happens to work best for guitar? It's 1 in 12, okay? So you gotta bet it's probably the case, more often than not, whatever the key is of the song you're working on, that it is not the most effective key, okay? Okay, number 3, and this is a big one for more advanced arrangers, people who are already doing it, but I call it confusing the melody, okay? The melody, confusing the melody. But what do I mean by that? Now, the most important thing for the listener to hear is the melody, okay? That's the most important thing. I think there's kind of a hierarchy, but melody is on the top of that hierarchy. It's very, very important. Now, when we're doing an arrangement, I'm actually going to erase all this crap for now. When we're doing an arrangement, what can happen is, let's say the melody goes ba 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 ba, right? It does that. It has this general pitch arc, right? It goes ba na 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 na. Now, that needs to breathe on its own, okay? If I'm doing an accompaniment down here, and I got this bass note, and I got this bass note, and I got this bass note, whatever. I know this is like very abstract, but like, you know, it's fine. It'll ultimately make sense. Let's say I got these bass notes. Now, the thing is, there's enough space between each one of these notes here. There's enough space between these notes and the melodic notes that are happening that the melody won't get confused, okay? This is able to breathe on its own. But let's say all of a sudden you start adding some extra line in. You know, you're hearing a particular line on another instrument in the song, and you want to put it in here. So you put in this note, and then put in that note right there, and then you put in, like, you know, this note right here, for example. Now, these might be okay. These might be fine, but this one right here, the problem is the listener is going to interpret this particular note as part of the melody. Okay, they're gonna hear ba da da do do do. You're gonna hear this as part of it. So the general rule is anytime there's notes happening that are not happening at the same time as the notes in the melody, they need to be far enough pitch-wise from the melody's range to not confuse the melody. Okay, so if the melody is, again, if it's going do, 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 if it's doing that thing, it's okay if I have a note right next to it, right? A third or whatever the hell, or even a second or something right next to it. These notes are all fine, right? Because you're going to hear them at the same time as these particular notes in the melody. You're going to perceive these basically as chords, and this particular melodic pitch arc is going to be totally free to be what it is without alterations. But as soon as this particular note is not played at the same time as this note right here, and it's instead played right here, then the ear is going to hear ba da 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 ba da da da, right? Ba da da da. Maybe it's not as far down as this one. So do you get my point? How now all of a sudden the pitch arc was supposed to be ba da 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 da. Now it's going ba da 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 da. And like, it might sound nice, you might like it, but it's wrong. It's wrong, bro. Okay? So just keep that in mind. Try not to confuse the melody, and try to let it breathe and let it stand on its own. Okay? Now, there's certain things you can do sometimes to, if you do have, if again you do have this particular line, and you want to have a note right here that's close to this pitch arc that might be at risk of confusing the melody, well, you just play that quietly. You just play that one quiet. Bum, 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 bum. So you take this particular note, play it as quietly as you possibly can. Make sure these notes are nice and loud, and that will also, have the effect of making it so the listener perceives that the pitch arc that's supposed to happen without it getting altered by extra notes that you're adding in. Okay? So that's another way to do it. And guys, if you do this cool stuff, you'll become cool. Now, if you're interested in learning more about this, if you want to become a God level arranger, and you're struggling and stuff, there's a link down below. You can give it a click and you can learn more about how I can maybe help you out, make you into a arranging God. I can teach you all my secrets, okay? But you can check out that link in your own time if you would like to. But that's basically it. That's the three mistakes that most arrangers are making. And they are, again, number one, you're not singing, okay? Start singing. Start getting used to using your voice, vocalizing, okay? It's really going to help. Number two, what the hell was number two, dude? Okay? Doing everything in the original key. Okay? Don't do stuff in the original key. Take some liberties. Guitar is a weird instrument, okay? It's weird that we, it's limited, yet it's unlimited enough that we can do full pieces of music, full polyphonic pieces of music, but not all keys are equal on guitar, right? So don't do everything in the original key. Feel free to move stuff around. And then number three, don't confuse that melody when you're doing an arrangement, okay? Let it breathe. Make sure that there's notes that aren't, interfering with the original melodic pitch arc that the listener is expecting to hear, okay? They're going to be happier, for it, okay? And that's it. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Tell me what else to do next time, all right? And also give me a sub. Give me a subscribe. Bye.